All right, we'll start off with Tehillim. We have 20, it looks like 18 tabs open on top. See how many, but open by the time we finish. Good morning, Reb Label. Good morning, Reb Levi. Good morning, Mr. Minsky. Good morning, Rabbi Karp. Good morning, Reb Moshe. Good morning, Dovi, Mr. Mike.
Mr. Mike.
Mr. McHugh, was saying Mike. Yeah, Mr. Nadich. Okay, we will start off with Tehillim. We say for the Holy Land of Eretz Yisrael. And then we will give some tzedakah. Lam natzayach mizmor l'David yanchadina b'yem saroi sakev Hashem elahei Yaakov yishach ezecha mikodesh mitzion tzedakah. I see the wrong chapter here. We'll fix that. Yizkar kol mechasecha v'ylascha yidash nesela yiten lecha chilvavecha v'chalatzascha yimalei Rabbi Shuasecha v'shem elheinu nidgal imali adinai kol mishalisecha ato yadati keshi adinai meshichai Yanei Mishmei Katsha Bigurois Yesha Yeminai Ela Berechev Ela Basus and Menachnu B'Shem Adinai Lehinu Naskir Hema Karu V'Nafalo Menachnu Kamnu V'Nisaydad Adinai Yeshi Amelach Yaneinu V'Yaim Kareinu. I'm going to go to the last chapter of Tehillim, chapter 150. Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Abakatshai, Hallelujah, B'Kia Uzai, Hallelujah, B'Gvorai Sava, Hallelujah, Kareb Gudlai, Hallelujah, B'Seka Shofar, Hallelujah, B'Nevel V'Chinar, Hallelujah, B'Seifel Macha, Hallelujah, B'Minu V'Ugav, Halu b'silzalei shama, halu b'silzalei serua. Kollel neshama, hallelujah, hallelujah. So Dovi,
Yeah.
you're very good, I know, at Jewish genealogy. Who your grandfather is, grandmother.
Yep.
Are you good at Jewish geography?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to play some Jewish geography in today's Gemara.
Okay.
All right?
Yes, indeed.
So if you have a Arsul Gemara, it's 22AB.
22 AD.
Paper.
Okay.
Michael.
What did he say?
I think everyone should also please give tzedakah.
I don't know how awful this is gonna be, but I'll give it a shot.
Honor that you made it. Dr. Green, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam v'yom v'aretz. So now we discuss in the Gemara many different opinions. What is halacha? Who do we rule like? Shalach le Rabba berei l'Rav Yosef. Rabba, the great Rabba Bar Nachmani, he sent a messenger to Rav Yosef. Hilchas Samai. Rav Yosef, he was known, he was blind, unfortunately. He was born being able to see, but later on he lost his vision. And he had a tremendous memory. And at one point he actually became very sick and he had what's called amnesia. No one knows what that is, right? Amnesia, where he had a short-term memory loss. He thought he forgot everything he knew. And then he worked with extreme diligence to remember everything that he forgot. What? Rav Yosef. He was one who knew Brises. Tradition was very, very strong by him. So Rav Yosef was asked, what is the halacha regarding if you have a Torah portion, a paragraph, which is very small, only 5 verses, and you need to read 3 at a time, what do you do? In addition, for example, on Ma'amadus, on the fast days, when in every Jewish town in Eretz Yisrael, they would send representatives. They would send representatives to the Beis Hamikdash, and in their own cities, they would have fast days. They would gather together the elders of the city, and they would fast. And they would read the Torah, and they would read from the 7 days of creation. And many, yes. 22:8:3. And there's many paragraphs here that are short. You need at least 3 aliyahs, each one being 3 psukim. The first paragraph of the first day of creation is 5 psukim. Second one is 3 psukim. Every paragraph is not easily divided. So to divide paragraph 1 in half, how would you do that? So what's the halakha of this entire discussion? When you need to divide a paragraph into it's very small, into multiple aliyahs, with each one being at least 3 psukim, do you repeat the verse or do you divide a pasuk in half? Shalach, he answered back to him, Hilchasa doilek. Halacha is that you repeat the verse. The second one, who gets the next aliyah, repeats it. And the best case scenario is that the one to repeat it should be the second one, the middle one who receives aliyah. So, for example, you have over here on the Torah reading of the days of creation for the fast days. And let's say it's Sunday or Monday, and you need to read days 1 and 2 of creation. So you read, and you need 3 aliyahs. So aliyah number 1, read verses 1, 2, 3. Aliyah number 2 will read numbers 3, 4, 5. And aliyah number 3 will read numbers 6, 7, 8. But it says you would try that the middle one, he should be the one to repeat, the second one to receive the aliyah, not the third one. In order, they should have 3 psukim until the end of the paragraph. However, if the middle one would start reading these 2 psukim and then 1 pasuk from the next paragraph, and the third one would repeat, so then you would 2 times have somebody leaving less than 3 psukim to the end of the paragraph. Here is only once. So again, here, paragraph number 1, on the screen, you have 5 psukim. So when you read the Torah, the first aliyah gets psukim 1, 2, 3. He leaves over how many psukim to the paragraph?
2.
2. So the second one's again aliyah, reads 3, 4, 5. And the third one reads 6, 7, 8. It didn't start the next paragraph. He left over 3 psukim to the paragraph. So the second aliyah repeats verse number 3. If the third one would repeat a verse, it would be like this. The first one, aliyah, would read verses 1, 2, 3. The second aliyah would read verses 4, 5, and 6, which is the beginning of the next paragraph. And then the third one will repeat 6, 7, and 8. What happened is that by 2 aliyahs, you left over 2 psukim till the end of the paragraph. After the first aliyah, you left 4 and 5. And after the second aliyah, you left 7 and 8. So 2 times, you left over 3 psukim, which you'd rather not do that if you don't have to. So therefore, the halacha is the middle one repeats a verse, and therefore, after the first aliyah reads 1, 2, 3, the second aliyah reads 3, 4, 5. The third aliyah has 3 full psukim left over till the end of his next paragraph, which is the entire second paragraph. So that is the halacha. The second one is the one who repeats. When it comes to Torah reading on Rosh Chodesh, we do the same thing. We have the first aliyah gets verses 1, 2, 3. Second aliyah receives verses 3, 4, 5. It's the second one who repeats, not the third one, because if otherwise it would be first one is 1, 2, 3, second one is 4, 5, 6, and third one would be 6, 7, 8. And then you do 9, 10 to just get the next paragraph in order. And then you would be leaving over 2 psukim to the end of the paragraph after aliyah number 3. So therefore, it's always the second one who repeats the verse. To minimize the amount of times that when you're reading the Torah, you stop and make a new aliyah when you have 2 psukim left to a paragraph. Continue with the Gemara. Here is the rule. If you want to know how many people to call to the Torah, just look at how many prayers, how many tefillas we daven on that day. On a day when there's only 3 prayers, Shacharis, Mincha, Ma'ariv, and you read the Torah, which is Monday, Thursday, also Shabbos, Mincha, we call 3 people. You have a day where you have an additional musaf, an additional sacrifice. like Rosh Chodesh, the first of the month, or like Chol HaMoed, the intermediate days, then you add a fourth aliyah. You daven Musaf, you bring an extra carbon in the Beis HaMikdash. And the other days, when you had an extra carbon, an extra addition, for example, Yom Tov holidays, then you add another aliyah because you have another carbon, an extra sacrifice. On days when you have an additional carbon, which is Yom Kippur, you have the special karbanos of Yom Kippur, extra cows and the 2 sheep, one for Hashem, one for Azazel. So then you add a 6th aliyah, an extra aliyah. And on Shabbos, you would add a 7th aliyah because Shabbos is holier than all the other days of the week. So that is the rule. You just look at how many prayers you daven that day, or how many carbon musafs, how many sacrifices were brought in the Beis HaMikdash extra on that day. So we're going to go through the Gemara and he'll say the rule. Ibai lahu. Whenever you have the word ibai, ibai always means a double-sided question. So is the option A or is the option B? So here's a question. Do we go like this or do we go like that? That's the word ibai. Is it this? Is it that? And first letter is Aleph, the second letter is Beis. So Beis is 2 options. Aleph option 1, Beis option 2. Easy way to remember what ibai means. Ibai lahu. They asked him a question. So the same people that we asked before, that we discussed before, of Yosef, and Rabbah. The amount of people which are called to the Torah, and how many aliyahs on any given day. Tanis Tzibor Bekama. The Mishnah said that on a day when you have an extra carbon, a musaf, in the Beis HaMikdash, then you add an extra aliyah to the Torah reading. On a fast day, there are no extra carbon musafs in the Beis HaMikdash because all the fast days were not around in the times of the Beis HaMikdash. We learned from Mesechta Tainis, right? We didn't have any of the fast days in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, except for Yom Kippur. All the other fast days were during the time of the Beis HaMikdash were not commemorated. They were commemorated as happy days, if anything, that Hashem built us a new Beis HaMikdash. But most of them are commemorating what happened during the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash or the second. So how many aliyahs do we, when we read the Torah on a fast day, how many people are called to the Torah? We know we call 3. But here's a question, how many are called to the Torah on a fast day? Rosh Chodesh umayed dika carbon musaf arba'a. So do we compare it to the beginning of a Jewish month called Rosh Chodesh? Do we compare it to Chol HaMoed, the intermediate days where there are 4 people called to the Torah because we have an extra carbon in the Beis HaMikdash on that day, an extra sacrifice. There's a book called Kiddush Hashem. It's an encyclopedia of the Holocaust written by Rabbi Shimon Huberband. He was in the Warsaw Ghetto, and during the Holocaust he was chronicling, writing down what's happening. He said because there's not going to be any survivors left over here, so we have to write down what's going on. So he kept on writing and writing a lot, and there was a small group called the Oinik Shabbos group, read by the Ringelbaum brothers, and they chronicled a lot what's happening in the Holocaust. Many things we only know from there. He was killed in 1942, and they discovered after the war and doing construction, discovered many milk jugs that were underneath the rubble of one of the buildings, and they found a lot of his writings. So he has over there one section called Humor of the War, Humor of the Holocaust. On Rosh Chodesh, the first of the month, davening is longer because we have Torah reading and we haven't carved Musaf, which we daven in Shul, but it's a weekday. Many people running to work. And in the ghetto, the most important day of the week was Mail Day. whenever the mail came, the mail would come at a certain time, and everybody was waiting for the mail. Maybe it's a package, maybe it's money, maybe it's an affidavit, maybe who knows what, their only source of hope. And so one day the mail carrier, Jewish man, he's walking, everyone's waiting for him, and there's a big line waiting for the mailman. And he comes 20 minutes late. Everyone starts screaming at him, "What are you late for?" He says, "I'm sorry, today is Rosh Chodesh. I had to daven Musaf." So the first of the month is an extra carbon in the Beis HaMikdash. Arba. So you have 4 people called to the Torah. Aval Hachla, but a fast day, the Laker carbon Musaf Loi. There's no extra carbon in the Beis HaMikdash that day. Fast day commemorates the destruction of the temple. There was no carbon, no special sacrifice for that.
But when I was actually I've been thinking of it like you can have actually something being the most hot, right? And then you have actually put a temperature less hot. So now this is it's like actually Shabbos, like the most hot. Okay.
Right.
Then you put it.
Okay, that's a good association to have.
And so this becomes less and less. And the heat you can picture is actually, I'm holding it, so I picture it that way.
Mhm.
So it makes it less and less.
Right. So there's different. You can picture it. Any association that works. Correct.
Take it off.
So a fast day, you don't have an extra.
Mhm.
Now, carbon musaf is from the Torah. Now, this holiday bring this holiday bring that. Even Chanukah and Purim did not have a carbon musaf. Right? They did not have any. We have a Torah reading. It's also 3 aliyahs on Chanukah and on Purim. A carbon musaf is a biblical from the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. If anyone wants to bring a Thanksgiving sacrifice, like on Chanukah, they brought many karbanas. They dedicated the Mizbeach, Chanukah's HaMizbeach. Still, we don't have any carbon musaf, a special sacrifice that was unique for any biblical Yom Tov, biblical holiday. So, do we say that a fast day is not comparable to Rosh Chodesh and Chol Hamoed, where you read we have 4 aliyahs because there is a carbon musaf and here is no carbon musaf? Or B, right? Here's a B of Ibai, maybe Hachanami Ika Musaf Tefillah. On a fast day, we don't have an extra musaf sacrifice. We don't have an extra tefillah musaf, a prayer of musaf, but we have a extra prayer in davening, which is called anenu. During Shemona Esrei, Mincha, everyone says it. Shacharis, just a chazan says it. But we add an extra part to Shemona Esrei called Anenu. Anenu, Hashem, Anenu. Hashem, answer us. It's like an extra blessing, an extra bracha of Shemona Esrei. Since you have an extra carbon, an extra tefillah, an extra prayer called Anenu, Hashem, answer us, and tefillah, prayer, is the substitute for karbanis. We can't bring sacrifices today. It says in Basi Lagani, a carbon comes from the word parov, which means close, bringing yourself close to Hashem. And the Beis HaMikdash will bring animals as karbanis, animals as sacrifices. And today, we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, but in a certain way, we have an advantage from it, is that instead of only a Kohen being allowed to serve Hashem, every Jew could serve Hashem. And every Jew could bring their own heart, a carbon, close to Hashem. An animal means, an nefesh b'ham is your animal soul, your animal desires. Like we learned in Kundur Samayin a lot about it. Some people have a desire for better food, which is a very low level of desire. Some have a desire for music, which is a higher level of desire. Some have a desire for making themselves feel good by being generous or something like that. Some have desire to be intellectual, but everyone's desire is bringing them, that's your own personal nefesh b'ham, is your animal soul, and bringing it close to Hashem, using it out. And that's, we could bring a carbon. So since we have a prayer, Lavanenu and tefillas, prayers are in the place of sacrifices, so maybe we do count it as an extra musaf, an extra prayer, and we should have an extra aliyah, 4th aliyah, on a fast day as well. We don't count the 24, if you remember, we learned about it called sounding the alarm in Mesechta Tainis. there's times that would daven 24 blessings during Shemoneh Esrei when there was a drought and they fasted, and like at the third series of 7 fasts, they would add many extra blessings to Shemoneh Esrei. So when they would daven 24 blessings, or sometimes they would have a tefillas ne'ilah, like the 5th prayer we have on Shemoneh Esrei. On Yom Kippur, the fifth prayer Shemoneh Esrei we add on Yom Kippur, they would add it also as well. Now on Tisha B'Av, there are opinions. Some say you should call 4 people, and we'll have that soon in the coming Mishnah on the next side, the next page. On 22b, we'll have about, do you call 4 people, 4 aliyahs on Tisha B'Av?
But Tisha B'Av is considered actually a holiday also, so maybe that's why, right?
Right, but Tisha B'Av is no ne'ilah.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's no ne'ilah. And also Tisha B'Av is a very strict fast. After Yom Kippur, it's the next to strictest fast.
Yeah.
Right? Even people usually don't fast other fasts because of health reasons, and Tisha B'Av, it's more strict. So we have the 2 choices. Do we call 3 aliyahs on a fast day or 4 aliyahs? Do we say there's no carbon musaf, no extra sacrifice in the base of the mikdash, so therefore you call 3? Or do you say that there's an extra addition to davening called anenu, and because of that you should add that's like a musaf, that is like a sacrifice, and therefore you should call 4 people on a fast day. Says the Gemara will bring 2 different answers and to discuss what the answers are. Tashma, Rosh Chodeshim, uVechulu Shamoyed, on Rosh Chodesh and Chol Hamoed, Karen Arba'a, you call 4 people. Habataina Sibur Shloisha is a brisa which states that Rosh Chodesh and Chol Hamoed, the beginning of a Jewish month and intermediate days, the 3 people will get an aliyah. And the fact that the Mishnah didn't add on also fast days, you call 4 people, means the fast days you don't have 4 aliyahs and you keep it at 3. And for answer to Gemara, a Maresh, look at the beginning. It says, "V'sheni v'chamishi b'Shabbos v'mincha karen shleisha." Atani sivar haba. I could deduce the opposite. You're trying to deduce from the fact that it doesn't include a fast day in the list of 4 aliyahs that there's 3. The Mishnah also has a list of when you have 3 aliyahs, which is Monday, Thursday, and Mincha and Shabbos, and there does not include a fast day. So the fact that it was left out is no proof. We cannot answer. Let's go a little bit up the page. The very first words we read today, that Rabbah asked Rav Yosef, what's the halacha? We'll just do a little bit. Okay, we'll do the next part. We'll skip that explanation. So let's go do the next part. Tashma. The Gemara now wants to answer this based on another story that happened. The Rav Ikla LeBavel. Rav one time came to visit Babylonia on a fast day. Now, what does it mean Rav came to visit Babylonia on a fast day? Rav lived in Babylonia, and we lived in Babel.
Yeah.
So I'll just discuss what that means. In the year 1207, where is it? 1209, I think. Here.
We also learned in yeshiva in Israel, and you're Rabbi Yehuda next.
219. In the year 219, Rav moved to Babylonia, to Babel. We see many times in Gemara that there was communication between Eretz Israel, and Babylonia. Babylonia is modern day Iraq, Iran, Mosul, all these cities are in the area of Babel. Now, let me just share on the screen. How long did it take to travel? Okay. How long did it take to travel? Here, new share. Here. So here is approximately where Yavne was, right? Yavne that's where the Jewish center in Israel was. You have the north of Israel where Rav Yehuda Nasi lived, where he's buried. This is Jerusalem. And going on the trade routes of that time, approximately you have to go up to Damascus. That's where the main trade route was. There's a lot of mountains over here. And then they would go around Damascus and travel over here this way to Babylonia. That's the Chidekel River, the famous Chidekel. We mentioned a lot in chapter 1 about Shushan, the city. It goes right along the city of Shushan, or Shush of today. So this, how long would it take? So let's look at Ezra over here. In Ezra, chapter 8, verse 31, it's a little bit out of order, the verses over here. The story is the second Beis HaMikdash was built, and Ezra is going around encouraging everybody, let's go to Jerusalem. Let's go Pesach in Yerushalayim, L'Shana Hazeh, this year in Jerusalem. And he encouraged the people, and he got a very large group, and he told them, let's all go to Yerushalayim. And they became excited, and the whole group, this describes in the beginning of the chapter who they were. These people, these families, and they all decided 3 days before Pesach, let's travel to Jerusalem. I guess wives were not too happy that they now had to finish. No, they were going with the families. They said, I don't know, we probably won't make it in time to Eretz Israel, to Yerushalayim for Pesach. It's 3 days before Pesach. But they left. They said, we already have to start moving. And they made Pesach on the road. And how long did it take for them to travel? It says they traveled on Yud Beis Nisan, the 12th of the first month, which is Yud Beis Nisan, 3 days before Pesach. They got up and they started traveling to go to Yerushalayim. And they came to Yerushalayim and stayed there 3 days. And when did they arrive? It says later on, they arrived in the month of Av. Where is he? In one of these psukim, it says they arrived maybe in the earlier pasuk. They arrived in the middle of the month of Av. About 4.5 months it took them to travel from Babylonia, to a place. The place is called Ahava, right? The place in Babylonia called Ahava, right? And traveled from there to Yerushalayim. It took them 4.5 months. I'm assuming that the transportation did not advance too much from the times of Ezra till the times of Rav. So that means travel. So you could say that it took them longer to travel because you're traveling with women, children, possessions. It probably took a lot longer to travel. They had to make more rest stops. They needed bathroom stops, right? Had to exactly to buy a coffee on the way. So it probably took longer, but you see, it was a very long journey that it took to go from Babel to Eretz Yisrael to Jerusalem, right? So it was a very long journey, and we're going to see twice on this page how Rav came to Babel. Rav traveled to Babel in order to learn Torah in Babel. So he made this tremendous journey of months in each direction, which I'm sure was a very difficult and dangerous and expensive journey to do. And he did it twice before even moving there, just in order to learn Torah from the great Talmid Chacham, the great sages in Babel. We can definitely learn from there. Whenever, we should do every effort it takes to learn Torah, to add in our Torah learning. If Rav could travel, Rav was a tremendous Talmid Chacham. He had great teachers in Torah, in Israel. He wasn't lacking in Torah knowledge. He thought maybe there's something I don't know which I could learn in Babel. And he traveled there twice with tremendous expense and months and everything to travel just in order to learn Torah in Babel, just to improve his Torah learning. So here's just a little bit of the background of Rav arriving in Babel. Says that's the Gemara says this is one of the big ideas, with the big things which made Bavel, Babylonia, into a Makam Torah, a place of Torah.
Was he blind also?
No, Rav is not blind,
Hmm.
as far as I know. And Shmuel was already in Bavel. Shmuel was in Eretz, had his yeshiva. Rav was in his yeshiva, and the Gemara mentions Rav and Shmuel hundreds, maybe several thousand times. All after Rav came to Bavel. All after Rav in the year 219 of the Common Era. And the story says there's Gemara over here. Shmuel and Karna. Karna was, I think, a big astrologer. They were sitting because Shmuel used to look at the stars. He was an astronomer. He's very famous for the calendar. Shmuel, he was very, very exact. And so Shmuel and Karna were sitting on the banks of the Malka River. This is Shabbos stuff. Mesechta Shabbos stuff. Kuf Yud Ches. V'achidi. And he saw the water was rising and jumping and becoming murky from everything that was kicking up. And Shmuel said to Karna, Gavra Rabba Ka'asi Marava. There's a great man who's moving now to Eretz Yisrael from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, to the west. V'chayesh b'meyeh. And he's aching. He has stomach pains. And it says, and the water is going to greet him now. And he says, go, zil toile kankane. Go sniff him out, see if he's a Torah scholar, this great person who's coming. And Karna went and he found Rav, and he tested him with 3 questions, right? He asked 3 questions, and he answered all these questions. And here, I've just brought up on the screen. You could check it up on your own time. An interesting explanation. Why Dafke Karna and why Dafke these questions, and what's an inner meaning of these questions. So Rav moved to Eretz Yisrael, and you see the amount of effort that it took. Look, here's a Jewish calendar. Here's Nisan, left 12th of Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av. And it came in the month of Av. So it was an extra, huge effort that it took for Rav to come learn Torah in Bavel. So let's finish this last thing of Rav. Rav came to Bavel on a visit. See, when you learn a Gemara, you could just read the words and translate it, or you could see that there's a depth to this as well. Rav, he came to Bavel, and he happened to be there, B'tainis Sibur, on a public fast day. Kom Hari B'Sifra, and a big honored guest came, and they gave him an aliyah. And over there, in those days, when you got an aliyah, you yourself had to read the Torah. And of course, Rav was able to read, and so Rav read the aliyah that he was called. He was given an aliyah, Ramod, Rabbi Abba ben, and he was given the aliyah. Pasach Barich, Chasim v'le Barich. One thing he did is he made a bracha before the beginning of his aliyah. He did not make a blessing after his aliyah. As we learned before, when everyone read their own aliyah, the first one will make a blessing on before, and the last one will make a blessing after. And another thing he did was, being as it is a fast day, everyone does tachanun, goes on their face. We nowadays, we only bow to the ground only on Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. But then they would do it every single day by tachanun, and on a fast day as well. Nafel kuli alma an payu, v'rav lo nafal alapei. When everybody was doing the filas apayim, falling down for tachanun, everyone bowed to the ground, meaning their face on the ground. Rav did not. And the Gemara will soon explain on the next side of the next page of Gemara will explain why Rav did not really join everybody in doing tachanun. But we'll pause the Gemara over here. So that's just a story of Rav, and based on this story, the Gemara is going to try bringing a proof to how many aliyahs there are on a fast day. We'll pause the Gemara over here. Just X out a lot of these things. Right, leave it with that. We're going to continue now with Kuntras Umayan. Holding chapter 2 in Maimer 27. Second to last chapter of the entire Sefer. We'll have to make a siyum when we finish the Mir Hashem. A good siyum. So, my Sefer. V'zeu mayan yatsa mi beis Hashem. Going back to the original point of the entire Kuntras, we started off explaining a pasuk, explaining a verse that says that from the house of Hashem, which means from the holy temple, a river went out. Now we explain what that meant. There's a vision that the river of Mashiach will come. Two rivers will go out from the holy temple, or from Har HaZeisim, Mount of Olives. One river will go to the Jordan, and one will go to the Mediterranean. Right? And that's the real meaning of Meyer Miyam Ad Yam. Mashiach will rule from sea to sea, or sea to shining sea, from river to the sea. Even the anti-Semites now are realizing Mashiach got to come. From the river to the sea, we will be free, right? Palestine will be free. They're realizing Mashiach got to come. It says that the river will go from the Beis HaMikdash from sea to sea. Of course, Chassidus explains what this means on a spiritual level and Kabbalistic level in the spheres with the level of Chachma. Hine mayan hu bechinas Chachma. Where is Chachma? Let's get X out of that. Okay, here's a stream. A mayan means a stream, a wellspring. Let's find here it is. Okay. It's a handy chart over here. There's many of them. Chachma is the first of the 10 spheres, which we've Baruch Hashem mentioned many times. Now here, in this particular one, they put in Keser, which is a crown, which means, and they take out Das. Chabad stands for Chachma Bina Das. What is Chachma? What is knowledge? Wisdom. Wisdom doesn't mean facts. That's part of Bina. That's part of expanding. And it's not even expanding, that's part of machshava, thought. It's part of malchus, it's part of manifestation. Chachma is the ability to understand. The ability to know, the ability to feel. What does wisdom mean? What's the source of the word wisdom? So I brought up this little article on Chabad.org, which explains it. Comes from the German word wit, which means keen and incisive. Wisdom is not defined by how much you know, according to Torah, not even on the ability to understand, to remember, but it's on the desire to know, curiosity, the desire for exploring new ideas. Rather than understanding something perfectly well, wisdom, chachma, is like an open hand. It's like an open thing. I'm welcoming all new types of ideas. All new things are being involved, or are welcome here. That's the idea of chachma. Chabad, that's the beginning of Chabad. If knowledge is power, knowing what we don't know, it's wisdom. Okay? Who is wise, says the Mishnah? He learns from every single person. Usually you think of somebody who's intelligent is someone who knows a lot, and people come to him to learn. That's not what the Mishnah says. Who's intelligent? Someone who learns from everybody else. He might be the biggest know-it-all, the biggest Rav who knows everything in the world, but he'll listen to somebody else because somebody else could add something that he doesn't know. So that's what a chacham is, a wise person. That's what chachma is. Right? Chachma is not knowledge, but it's the desire for knowledge. That's what chachma is. Now, someone who's ready to learn from anybody, that means even a person who didn't put in all the effort that the wise person put in, they still want to hear it. You have to be very humble. Moshe Rabbeinu was wise, but he was very humble. He was able to think, or he could learn from somebody else. He was curious and he wanted to know what's each person, how they experience it. And that's what actually Hashem chose him to be the leader for that reason. Right? He's called Moshe Rabbeinu. Until this day, he's called Rabbeinu, our teacher. But why? He was the most humble person because he had his thing was he wanted to learn from every single person and learn min mikol adam. So Chachma, you could say, is not so much wisdom, it's more curiosity. That's how you could say, in many ways, is a better definition of a Chachma. Or for the real definition, speak to...
I thought it was someone who could see through into the deeper aspects of something as Chachma.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It goes together, I think. Because a person who looks at another fellow and they say, this is a person who I shouldn't be associating with. Yeah. If you're humble, then you're going to say, I could learn something from him. What are you learning? You have to look deeper and find the good qualities out of them. So I think that's
fair. Okay.
Perhaps it goes together. Yeah. Right, the word chachma over here, start making it bigger a little bit. You rearrange the letters, and it comes from the word koyach ma, the power of what? Which is the power to ask what? What do you have to say? Moshe Rabbeinu called himself anachnu ma. What are we? By the Seder, what do? You ask lots of questions. So are questions good or bad? They're excellent. It's part of Yiddishkeit. Who says everyone has to know all the answers? Well, I don't know if everybody knows all the answers. The Torah doesn't say if your child will ask you, then it says when your child will ask you. So your child should ask. There's an interesting anecdote. He says there was a Isidore Rabbi. He won the Nobel Prize for physics.
Oh, Rabbi.
That's right. It's always relative.
And he also says he'd like to work with mushrooms.
Right. So he says his mother would ask him when he came home, not what did he learn today, like most people did. It says, what questions did you ask today in school? So that's how he became a scientist without even realizing he's being made into one. Right. And so in the same way, somebody studied many different presidents, and they found that generally, the long list of personality traits from every president, and said the ones who were most successful were the people who are always curious, trying to find out new things, hear new ideas. They didn't want to implement the policy that they had in mind, but they said, let's experiment, let's try something new. It wasn't, I want to check off, want to have a points, I have to score it. Rather, trying out new things. That's in general the most successful presidents and inventors, etc. It says, Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, we know them. It says, you know who the bigger Torah scholars were? Beis Shammai. But halacha is never like Beis Shammai. Very rarely. It's like 18 instances out of hundreds where the halacha is like Beis Shammai. But almost predominantly, the halacha is always like Beis Hillel. These students of Hillel as opposed to Hillel of Shammai. Why? No, they weren't as great thinkers. They weren't so knowledgeable like the house of Shammai. House of Shammai had Bina. They had they excelled at Bina. They were able to build upon what they learned, delve deeply, plumb the depths. Beis Hillel, they had more of the chachma, the curiosity. They were respectful. They never shut anyone else down. All the stories in Gemara about the 3 different converts, people wanted to convert, they came to Shammai and he chased them away. And they came to Hillel and he accepted them. And even with all their idiosyncrasies that they came along with the Shammai.
That's like Chabad.
Well, Chabad incorporates Chachma Bina Das. It's a coincidence, yeah. Shammai, they would always argue the point out to win. Priscilla wasn't out to win. If we're wrong, great, thanks for letting me know. They were out to find out what's the real deal. So Yiddishkeit doesn't views wisdom as a tool. Chachma is not a noun, it's more of a verb. Right? It's an ability to achieve, and the interest and the desire to achieve, as opposed to actually going and achieving. So therefore, in Pirkei Avos it says, Ezu Chacham, who is a wise person? Learns from every person. He does not speak in front of someone who's wiser than him. He doesn't interrupt when others are talking. He doesn't answer very fast. He asks what is relevant, and he answers to the point. He answers first question first. All these things, and he's willing to say, Lo shamati, I don't know. Rashi says several times in his explanation in Torah, I don't understand what it's doing here. I don't know the explanation. And if he's wrong, he says, you're right. He acknowledges the truth. Or any of these things talking about, he has to sit and learn all night. He has to write Torah essays once a month. Any of those any of these part of the 7 character traits? That you should learn 3 hours a day Mishnah, 3 hours a day Gemara. It doesn't say that's a Chacham. It talked about his character traits, about how he is humble, he listens to other people's opinions, he doesn't interrupt, doesn't speak in front of other people. A Torah scholar is not called a Chacham, a sage, called a Talmid Chacham, a student of a sage. The student learns from the teacher, and the teacher has obviously, or preferably, some level of expertise that the student wants to acquire. But to be a Torah scholar, one must be a Talmid. You can't only be someone who's teaching Torah, and you also have to be a Talmid, a student, open to receive. Like the famous example in Gemara is Reb Zera. He moved to the land of Israel from Bavel. He fasted 40 fasts, and he should forget his past learning in order he should be able to learn the way they learn in Israel. They learned on a much higher level of scholarship, and he doesn't want his previous steadfast, ways that he knows to distract him. Look at everything through that prism and that lens. So the Chachma, a lot of it is curiosity. There was in the old shtetl, the way a wealthy person would always get the first picks. They'll go to yeshiva and ask for the biggest scholar, and it was an honor to have a Torah scholar, a Rav, a rabbi of a city, as your son-in-law.
It happened a lot in my family.
Exactly. Dovi's family, he comes from 75 Rabbanim because they all married each other. Or you have a very big well-known rabbi, Rosh Yeshiva, and he himself will go to a city and go to the Rosh Yeshiva. And so there's one time, a great sage, and he had a daughter of marriageable age, and he's looking for a suitable chassan, make a shidduch. And he went to the biggest yeshiva in the area, and he says, I'm looking for a son-in-law, but instead of going to the head of the yeshiva, he says, I want to ask all the bachrim. He says, I want to ask the yeshiva students myself. I want to talk to them. And so he gave a shir to the yeshiva, and he asked a question during the shir. And he says, whoever could come up with the answer, I'm willing to have them. I'll be happy to have them as my son-in-law. It was a very, very difficult question. And a lot of students were trying to figure out the answer, and nobody was able to figure out an answer to this. So when he's leaving town, so the wagon driver heard one of the yeshiva students stopping them and started running towards the carriage. So they stopped. He asked him, what do you want? He says, I have no hopes of marrying your daughter, of becoming your son-in-law, but I want to know, what is the answer to the question? How did you know? At the end of the story, he says, this is the one of them becoming my son-in-law. He says, I knew the question was too difficult for any of these Shiva Bachram to figure out the answer. But I wanted to see who was the one who had the curiosity, who had the desire to know the answer. And he told him the answer, but he told him that's what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for someone who could figure out the answer. I was looking for somebody who wants to know the answer.
And that sounds like me. That would become the guy's son-in-law.
The Yiddishkeit, Chachma, it's not, being wise is not measured by how much you know, but how much you want to learn. Hillel, Shkoyach, and Reb Leibel, there was Hillel's idea of chesed. How do you make this smaller? Hillel comes from the word Bahalu Nerei. See, I'm not sure if you wrote that here. Bahalu Nerei means that the candle was moving.
If you maximize it from the whole thing, then you make the lettering smaller than everything.
Interesting. Let's try that out. I don't want to make it a whole screen, but how about this? Yeah, we'll do that. Hillel comes from the term Bahalu Nerei. Hillel, the idea of chesed, Shammai expressed the idea of gvura, malkeinu. It's the difference between viewing Hashem in terms of malkeinu, our king, and relationship avinu. Explains the difference between Ashkenaz, malkeinu, Chassidim, Sfardim, avinu. Do you mind explaining that, please?
Ashkenaz is the Gemara one.
Sure, if you mind explaining what...
Well, yeah, you take a look at Litvisher Minhagim. They are very makbid in doing the halacha first. And the Sfard and Chassidish Minhagim are very much interested in showing our relationship, how much we love Hashem. I'll give you an example. Kiddush, the literature start with Bray Perigofen, because that's the essence of Kiddush. Okay. So we want to show our relationship. Same thing with you put a gartel. The belt works as a gartel, and then we put on a gartel. So the question is, how many times can you fulfill the halacha? You fulfill the halacha, but we're showing that we want to make preparation for davening, and it's a separation between the place we were and the place we are now. So there, it's again, it's one of showing Hashem how much we love and care and want to have a relationship with Him. So that's the guess. But they're both necessary. There's Avinu and Malkeinu, and that explains, by the way, the Alter Rebbe's famous saying that I don't want your dad name, and I don't want your olam haba. Well, I want you alone. And the essence gets everything. The Litvisher guys, they want Gan Eden. They want all the rewards, the schusim, the Svardish guy want olam haba. To be able to have them maintain a close relationship with Hashem. And the Alter Rebbe said, no. We want essence, and essence is essence, and you get everything. And the drasha.
It says another thing, when it comes to bracha on tefillin, so Ashkenaz makes a bracha, if I remember, I think only on the hand, not on the head, or they do both. They do both.
Yeah.
Ashkenaz makes a bracha on the hand tefillin and the head tefillin. Sfard only does a bracha on the hand tefillin. I mean, Chabad does like Sfard. And the difference is there's a Mekubalim, which I have argument, the Ashkenaz Mekubalim and the Sfard Mekubalim is the makif, which is drawn down by Tefillin Shorosh. The level of is a very high makif, very high level of godliness. And are you able to bring it down? A bracha is bringing down that godliness here. So the Ashkenazi Mekubalim say you could bring it down, and Sfardi Mekubalim say that you can't bring it down.
Interesting.
It's a maimer in Parshas Ve'era, actually. Parshas Ve'era from Torah, in the maimer of Misam Pel Adam. Yeah, so also Hillel comes to the word Balu Nerei. The candle was flickering. That's the idea. Flickering is your candle, you're shining, but it's always trying to leave, right? And it goes up to the orbit of the gas, where the source of the leaving its source. That's the idea of Chachma. And Shammai is, I think the word is Shama, listening, right? Which you're far away from the thing, but when you're far away, you get to expand the idea much more. It's the idea of Shammai, also brought down Sir Ramar. Thank you, Mr. Reb Leibel. Thank you, everyone, for joining from near, from far. Reb Levi, Rebel, Ramosha, Mr. Minsky, Rabbi Karp, and everyone here.